Cashflow Diary Podcast, episode 145.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast, the podcast that teaches you insider tips, tactics, and strategies for creating leverage streams of cash flow into your life. Learn from top-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and thought leaders from across the globe as they share their secrets to success. Like what you learn on this and other Cashflow Diary podcast episodes? Go to learninvestingnow.com and sign up to receive powerful tips and information that will help you succeed as an entrepreneur and investor. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, educator, speaker, author, and master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game, Jay Massey.
Who I have with me for the show is none other than Dallas Page. Diamond Dallas Page. You may be familiar with him from being the world heavyweight champion, and he's now been in the process of developing a brand new system as it relates to yoga, etc., because he himself experienced a very debilitating injury and has been able to come back. And what's been interesting about this process is how he did it. And most importantly, as an entrepreneur, you know that you can get knocked down many more times, but yet at the same time, still get back up. So help me welcome Diamond Dallas Page. Dallas, you there?
I'm here, Jake.
How are you today, sir?
Unstoppable, brother. We have had an amazing 2014. Going into the end of 2013, we were featured on HBO's Real Sports, and they just did a 15-minute segment on Diamond Dallas Page, DDP Yoga, two of my brothers that I was helping turn their lives around, Jake the Snake Roberts and Scott Hall. And they just did the most beautiful, Frank Fedor did the most beautiful, piece about us. And then we were already accepted to go on Shark Tank in February of 2014. And Shark Tank really changed the playing field on a lot of different levels. We were already doing really well, but the power that Shark Tank has in the viewership and the people who like to try the products that come off of Shark Tank. And we actually have been on Shark Tank this year alone. We were on the original in February. We got the rerun, I think it was April. We were featured on two other times that they've actually showed it, and it's just been amazing for the company. And we worked, for years to get on that show, but once we got on, and they loved us, and they treated us really great, and it really helped build our brand. So that's been amazing for 2014. We also just announced, I don't know if you're familiar with Slamdance, but Slamdance is a very famous film festival set up for independent filmmakers. And it runs at the same time as Sundance in Park City at the same time. So it gets a really nice extra bump because of Sundance. And like I said, it's highly, accreditable. We were just featured as one of the 30 films that will actually be at Slamdance. And it's the resurrection of Jake the Snake, which was the movie that we've been filming the last 2 years, chronicling the life of Jake Roberts and how he had gone, from the penthouse to the outhouse, so to speak, and then worked his way back up. And he's doing just unbelievable. It's a really emotional roller coaster. It's a thought-provoking. It really deals with, obviously addiction, but also on the other side of it, it's not about how many times you fall down. It's about how many times you get back up again. And that's the whole movie. And Jake is, just got an unbelievable response. The people at Slamdance are so excited to have the film. So we just found that out. And we're building our very first DDP Yoga Performance Center right now here in Atlanta, Georgia. And that's actually going to be our sound stages for our workouts, our food shows, And our green screen, we'll put a 28-foot by 18-foot green screen on our back wall so we can do a lot of fun, funky videos that we do for DDP TV. So 2015 is just going to be amazing.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what the message that I want everybody to hear is the fact that as an entrepreneur, you have the ability to affect so many lives. And it comes down to matters of distribution, making sure that your product is exactly what people are looking for. And this is why I've often said that today's entrepreneurs is a lot like yesterday's superheroes. You know, we dress up and the yesterday's superheroes, they would dress up and save people and, you know, from burning buildings, they get bit by spiders, all this stuff. But yet at the same time, they were helping people. And that's what today's entrepreneurs do. Now, I have a question for you. Just like yesterday's superheroes, before they were able to be so super, they started out not as super, not as quote unquote special, etc. And they have an origin story. What I would really love to know is that before you were doing all of these great things, before heavyweight champion, before all of that stuff, who's Diamond Dallas Page?
Well, you know, back, I'll give you the cliff notes. Came from a broken family. Grew up with ADD and dyslexia at a time when no one knew what the hell ADD or dyslexia was. I was probably reading in third grade level at the age of 30. I was a guy who was an athlete. Since I couldn't, read or write, I put all my energy into communication, verbally, communicating with everybody. If I didn't understand what someone meant, I said, what does that mean? What does that word mean? I was full of questions, and, as much as I can really talk, because I am a communicator, I also can listen. And I got involved in a nightclub business at a very early age, and I really learned how to promote, to brand back into nightclubs. Because, there's a ton of different nightclubs that people can go to, but why do they come to yours? Why is your club packed? And that's where I learned a lot of just how to make people react and how to get people involved. And I found that people need to feel like they are involved. And at 35, I made a decision, actually 31. I thought I was too old to be a wrestler. I made up a tape, and I sent it to the AWA, which is the American Wrestling Alliance, which is a very big alliance at one time. But I had sent them a tape of me wanting to be a manager with guys who wanted to be wrestlers. And I wrote storylines and the whole thing. And I made these interviews, and I sent them to the AWA. And they called me back 2 weeks later, and they were like, we like your stuff. We are interested in, bringing you and your guys in for a tryout, but we got a question like, where have you guys been wrestling? Because no one's ever really heard of you before. I mean, that's how much thought went into me making these interviews up to send to these guys. And I go, well, we got one problem. Those guys can't wrestle. And they're like, what? I'm like, well, they want to be wrestlers, but it's like a secret society. No one knows how to get in. And they were like, don't call us, we'll call you. And then, as luck would have it, 2 weeks later, all the planets lined up, and a guy named Paul Heyman, who's Paulie Dangerously at the time, left the AWA and went to the NWA, which would become Ted Turner's WCW. But he left there, and it left a huge void of a young guy who could talk. So they brought me in, and I'd never been on TV before. I'd never been in a position where I talked in front of the camera, in front of a couple of thousand people and a couple of million people watching. So what I did have, though, I'd been in my nightclub running hot legs contests in front of 1,500 people, and I did a lot of, I had a lot of some comedy, but, just basically comedy in the moment and finding that and having people having fun. And I was way more prepared for the wrestler guy who went out there as a manager and talked for these guys. Again, because I thought I was too old to be a wrestler. And I worked for 3.5 years. It cost me money to believe that Diamond Dallas Page could actually be something. It cost me a lot of money but I just had this dream, this vision that I would get to the WWF, now the WWE. As a manager one day, but I didn't get to the WWF. I got to the WCW, which was the other top, Coke and Pepsi. And they brought me in as a manager, and it looked like my career was starting to take off. And then they decided that because of my long blonde hair, the diamonds on my outfits, the diamond dolls, all of that was Diamond Dallas Page, over the top gregarious character. He was still a bit too much for wrestling as a manager. Like, how the hell are you too over the top for wrestling? But, I was found to be that guy. And what they did was I had 7 months left on my contract. And I was like, if I can't, they were letting me do color commentating, but I was like the 4th string color commentator. And the next veteran wrestler that was to retire, who could talk, would have definitely taken my job. So I was like, this dream's going to be over before it happens. And I just thought to myself, I got to take action. I've always wanted to be a wrestler. I never wanted to be a wrestling manager. And at 35 and a half years old, with 7 months left in my contract, I went down to the power plant where they trained some of the young guys. When I say young guys, I mean in their early 20s, not mid-30s.
Right.
And they literally fell down laughing at me in the beginning. They laughed at Michael P.S. Hayes, fell on the ground, belly laughing. Like, dude, you're never going to be able to pull this off. You're too old. And what I have found my whole life, people will tell me, you can't do this because you're too tall, you're too small, you're too fat, you're too skinny, you're too young, you're too old. I don't believe anyone can tell me what I'm too of anything. I said, my favorite quote ever, if you say you can or you say you can't, you're right. Do you know who said that?
Napoleon Hill?
No, that's close. That's a good one. Good guess. If you say you can or you say you can't, you're
Henry
right.
Ford.
There you go. Henry Ford. But what the hell did he ever do anyway, right?
No one knows him at all. No one knows him at all. He's a nobody, right?
He didn't do anything that's important. He didn't do anything that was life-changing, like invent a car or an assembly line. There's probably 100 things that Henry Ford did that changed the world. And that's probably on the low end. But the bottom line is, I wasn't going to believe I can't. You have to envision things. You have to see things before they happen. And I saw myself as a mid-level wrestler who could now go back and be a color commentator at some point, 3 or 4 or 5 years from now. And that's what I was going to do. And, you set your goals pretty high. You don't set them like insanely, unless it's like a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan. But, you've got to set high goals. You don't want to set low goals and hit mediocrity. You want to set high goals and hope you get like to the left or to the right of that. And for me, you can always readjust your goals. Once I realized I'm definitely going to be a mid-level card performer, I realized I'm going to be the world champ. And there's nothing going to stop that from happening. I would not be denied. And it took 8 years. But 8 years later, I had the WCW World Championship title around my waist. And that's like our Oscar. It's like, our Emmy. It's like you are the very best in the world at what you do right now. And it was, it was probably one of the most gratifying moments of my life because it proved through all the hard work. Because everybody laughed at me when they said I was going to be a wrestler. They laughed at me when I iced my knees and iced my back. They laughed at me when I talked about deep muscle massage therapy and chiropractic and organic juicing. They laughed. They laughed when I blew my back out in '99, going into '99. And 3 of the top specialists in the world told me my wrestling career was over. And, here I am, a guy who wouldn't be caught dead doing yoga the first 42 years of life. Now, because I realized I just signed a multi-million-dollar 3-year deal, and if I don't make a change, I always say flexibility is used, not just in the body, but in the mind. Until my mind became flexible to the idea of doing yoga, I would never even have thought about doing it. I laughed at it like a lot of my other buddies.
Right.
But once I started to do it, I was like, whoa, I'm about 3 weeks in, Jay, and my body's going, hey, this is working. Right. And what I did was I started to mix it with the rehabilitation stuff I'd been doing, because I had 2 knee surgeries, 2 shoulder surgeries. I had rehabbed them both back, all 4 of them back. And I learned a lot about rehab. I learned a lot about the moves that you get into to strengthen your body. And now I was learning back stuff for rehab. I just started to mix them all together with the yoga positions. Now, notice I didn't use the word pose or posture. And those are proper words in yoga, but I don't use them. Because in my world, I didn't develop this for yogis. I didn't develop DDP Yoga for yogis. They got their 100,000 different types of yoga. I developed this. And think about when you really talk about he took the path less traveled. Before I even get into that, I'll say for me, there has always been, and this is in every business on the planet, there is better than. Whoever that company is, they are the best. Everyone under them is less than or different than. And I will always choose to be different than. It's just the way I'm wired, but anybody can do it. So, in that famous quote, he took the path less traveled. In this scenario, I didn't even take the path less traveled. I got to the forest. There was no effing path.
Right.
Because I was developing this for yogis. I was developing this for people like me who wouldn't be caught dead doing yoga. Now understand, I will do every kind of yoga today because I appreciate every single one of them. But I know in the beginning, I didn't feel like that.
Right.
So I'm not making this in any way, yogis will really like it. Screw them. I didn't make it for them. I made it for the guy and the gal who wouldn't be caught dead doing it. But what's really funny is each person that I get in who really gets DDP Yoga, pretty much 50 to 80% of them will walk into just about any yoga studio after that and try it. Now, then it comes up to the teacher. If they got a good teacher, they're going to go, wow, that was a great class. If they got a teacher, they're going to go, that yoga's
right.
I'm going to stick to DDP Yoga. So, bottom line is, I set myself apart. I not only take the path less traveled, I will go into a situation where people are laughing at me. Like, cause when I told my buddies I was going to start doing yoga to heal my body, boy, did they laugh at me. But once it did, and I was back in the ring, and I even proved it worked. When I was carrying my mat or doing my thing, and there was no spiritual mumbo jumbo. This was just like a regular boot camp type workout with no impact. So it wasn't, but they knew that I was doing it on a yoga mat, so they laughed at me. I mean, I look back, they laughed at me when I said I was going to run nightclubs before I was 25. I did that. They laughed at me when I said I was going to become, professional wrestler at 35. Oh my God, did they laugh? Laughed when I was talking about ice in my body, organic juicing, deep muscle massage therapy, chiropractic. Oh my God, did they laugh at me when I started doing yoga? But oh my God, did they laugh at me when I said I was going to create my own yoga for people who wouldn't be caught dead doing yoga? And every single one of those things came true on such a high level. Now most of my buddies who were laughing are doing it.
Right.
Talking about it.
No doubt. Well, one of the things that I find interesting that's very common amongst many entrepreneurs is simply the fact that we often find our destiny after some sort of tragedy. And in this particular sense, you probably wouldn't have looked to yoga had you not actually injured yourself. Would I be correct in that assumption?
That would be spot on.
Yeah, and it wasn't until something like that happens to an entrepreneur that we finally wake up, usually to what we were created to do in the first place, and then we get the privilege of using everything that we already had to serve a completely different audience in a completely different way. And well, by nature, we're entrepreneurs, so therefore we swim upstream. We don't know what a path is. We're the ones who are going to make a path and create it. And you've done that tremendously, time and time again. But there's one thing that I've got to ask, because you've said this a few times. There were when people laugh at you, or when you get started. Those are all things you had never done before, and yet there's a type of person out there who wants to build cash flow, wants to have a business, but waits until they have it all figured out before they get started. You don't strike me as that type of person. And how do you develop the courage to start before you're ready?
I just got to give you a segue on that. I'm building this performance center. Before I'm all in, I'm from the building to all the construction, everything, I'll have $2 million there. I'm also building, and for lack of a better word, I'll call it an app. Think of Netflix for fitness, and not just workouts. Because I'm building 3 sound stages. This has never been done before. They're building 3 sound stages, and we're going to film our workouts. And they're not just going to be filmed to go into the can. They're going to be filmed, and they will go out live on what I'm calling DDP Yoga Now. Now, you can do any of my other DVDs. You can do my DDP Yoga for Kids, which isn't available anywhere but DDP Yoga Now. For my seniors, how to work out using a chair, people who are really injured, showing you how to eat real food, because everything is genetically modified today. So what isn't genetically modified? It's one of the reasons why we have so much illness in our country, because they have so on the food. I'm going into an area, building this app / network, for lack of a better word. That's $1 million. I've never done them before, either one. But in my mind, I had this idea 3 years ago. And it started where I was going to film in my house and do it out of my living room, which I pull all the couches and stuff out, and I have like my 4 or 5 people in there. But DDP Yoga has just grown and grown and grown, and I'd rather put it all into the business, because I believe that this is going to be a $500 million company at some point. And forget the money, because it took me 8.5 years to make a dime with DDP Yoga, and I was $548,000 in before I took a dime out. And all of the money means we've sold over 140,000 units in 3 years. $100 basic average price a unit. You do the math. No one does those numbers. But I know that the DVDs are selling at such a level, and that means it works. Normally, not right now, because we got a special going right now that we've been running, because it's our anniversary month, and we're running it up till probably New Year's, and it's the lowest you'll ever get our program at right now. But our friend, we got someone buys something, we know why they buy it. They buy it because of HBO special. They buy it because of Shark Tank. Did they buy it because they're listening to Chris Jericho on his podcast, or Steve Austin on his podcast, or where did they hear it from? And then there's one line. It says friends and family. 18 to 20% of my sales every single day is friends and family. Since we started our sale, which we started on Black Friday, 39% of my sales every day, friends and family. It's insane. That means works. So when you say, how do you go into something like this? How do you know what? First of all, I've envisioned this for years. And now I'm watching it manifest into a reality. Now, do I have some serious hurdles when we take it to subscription model? Absolutely. But let's look at a company like Blockbuster. Blockbuster, would you agree, dominated VHS and even going into DVDs? Would you say they dominated the industry?
Until they didn't pivot.
Are you tired of letting good cash flow generating ideas go to waste? Go to cashflowdiary.com/ready to apply for a complimentary, yes, that means free, one-on-one breakthrough session. Take action now. Go to cashflowdiary.com/ready. Again, that's cashflowdiary.com/ready. Before we get back to today's episode of the Cashflow Diary podcast, your host, Jay Massey, has some important insights to share with you.
All right, guys. So a little bit of a departure from everything. The thing to understand is that business occurs. Your background can morph and change and be willing to pivot and become a different person. You never know where your next opportunity lies. And if you are open to it, you may just find it in some of the most unlikeliest of places. Always be open to finding a way to provide value in a unique way that others aren't. And you never know what might be behind door number 2. Let's get back to it. Yes, absolutely.
And that's what Netflix did.
Exactly.
Netflix, a lot like Hulu. A lot of people still don't know what Hulu is. They know what Netflix is, though. And now Netflix is doing their own programming. Right. Like shows like House of Cards. They've got their own, like HBO, they're developing their own programming.
Right. And
the thing about Netflix is a lot like DDP Yoga now. You'll be able to get it whenever you want it. Now this whole on-demand thing with HBO and Showtime, they've got that type of thing as well. But I want people to know that but none of those shows are live. Ours will be live so many different times. And because of Twitter, like this DDP Yoga is not in this place it's in today. Even with all the amazing amount of PR I've had on so many different writers, we had a 6-page article in the New York Times Magazine. It was insane. None of this would have been possible without social media, right. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. I mean, their YouTube was available when I first started doing this, like 9 years ago.
Right. And
no one knew what it was. But over that period, that disabled veteran, you watched that video, right?
Mm.
The disabled veteran I helped walk again?
Right. I think that was the one that won in 2012. If I'm not mistaken, it was in Google's Zeitgeist. Is that correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. That was 8 years ago. We just retooled it a little bit, threw the music in the right spots. One of my president of my company is one of the most creative you ever met in your life. And he directed that video again, and now it's got over 11 million views. I know people who watch that video every single day because it inspires them. Right. And when we were on Shark Tank, the thing that, here's these guys, they're all ridiculous money. From billionaire Mark Cuban down to worth $500 million, the other guys, And 3 of them had the same question. And they asked it individually. And we answered exactly the same way every time. In a field, fitness, where everyone has a DVD. No one is successful except for Beachbody and what came before with Billy Blank's Tybo. Nobody's been successful. How are you guys so successful? And Steve said it first. He said, we inspire people. And they were like, that's great, but how are you making the money?
Right.
I said, we inspire people. Maybe you're not understanding the question. Oh, I go, no, you're not understanding the answer. We take ordinary people who are not, who are pretty broken and help them do extraordinary things by inspiring them.
Exactly.
So
now,
that's the secret of us, our company.
So, and which hits on the point of, there comes a point in everyone's, journey where you're thinking, okay, can I do a business? What does that look like? And how did you come up with the idea? I mean, at the end of the day, it's one thing to heal yourself. It's another to take on the challenge and say, you know what? I'm going to heal and help other people, because that's a completely different leap in thinking and mindset. And you decided to put on that superhero outfit and say, you know what, let's go help some people. How did you get to that particular point in realization?
Well, it was pretty easy because I started to show guys in my profession, and a few listened to me. And then those few didn't get hurt as often. So they started working it into their programs that they were already doing. Then I started to take friends of mine who were from singers to, broke military guys or beat up firemen. And I'd say, you really need to try this with me. And I didn't have any DVDs at the time or any of that. Right. So I made one up, like in the backyard. And I started giving it to people. And I just gave, in the beginning, Jay, I just gave. I just helped. I still do it today. I mean, I'm going to call at least 5 people today who invest. And notice I didn't say buy or purchase. I say the word invest, because that's when you invest in DDP Yoga, you are investing in yourself. You're investing in putting the work into the program. And I'm going to call at least 5 people today and go, hey, Billy, or hello, is this Billy? This is Billy. Who's speaking? I go, DDP. Who?
Yeah,
DDP.
Right.
And they'll go, seriously? And sometimes they're fans. Other times they're like, oh, my God, you're calling me? Like, when I hang up with you, I will go to the last person who invested in the program, and it might have been 2 minutes ago, it might have been 5 minutes ago. So they're going to get a call like, boom, like that person will, because I do care. And what's really crazy is some of the people I have working with me right now, people who have an unbelievable transformation, who are now certified DDP Yoga instructors. I called them that very first day. And it just gave them some kind of extra boost. It's pretty crazy, man. I just go outside the box. I think that's really important. And you gotta love. I listen to Donald Trump, who's one of the most successful guys in the world. Not crazy about how he does all of his stuff, but I do love his results, which are mind-boggling. And he wrote a book called Think Like a Champion. And this applies to everything. And Barbara Walters was interviewing him, and she said, Donald, so what does it take to think like a champion? And again, this applies to every entrepreneur who's out there. And he said, first of all, he goes, you got to know your product, your business. You got to know it inside out, upside down, and that you need to be on your way to being the most knowledgeable in your field, class, whatever it is. He goes, second, you got to love it. He goes, you got to feel like you can work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and not really feel like you're working.
Right.
And number 3, she said, what's number 3? He said, don't quit. And she went, oh, but Donald, shouldn't some people quit? And he went, nope. And she goes, come on now. Just hold on. If you're talking about the guy or the gal who comes to the wall and he made a fist, he said, I'm going to go through the wall. I'm going to go through the wall. I'm going to go through the wall. He goes, that person should quit. Because what you have to realize, there is a way around the wall or over the wall or under the wall. You've got to figure out. He goes, and basically what he said is what I always say, a goal, the beginning and a goal is not defined by one straight line. You're going to fall down a lot.
And more than you want to.
And you know what? The biggest I made in my wrestling career was the smartest thing that ever happened to me in my business career. And the cliff notes are, when I left WCW, I was the only top guy WWE wanted for a lot of reasons. And they set me up on an angle that, because remember, it's all storyline. They set me up at an angle. I was going to make Diamond Dallas Page look pretty weak. And I didn't see it. I felt it, but I didn't see it in the beginning. But I knew it wasn't the angle for me. Like I've always done, I've got to put myself in a position where I control my own destiny, even if someone else is writing the story. Right. I've got to be able to control my destiny. And that would have been People's Champion versus People's Champion. And what did he ever turn into? Dwayne Johnson, The Rock. I don't know, the biggest star in the world, and that should have been my angle. And I had that in my head 2 years before I ever got there. Now, here are the two things that I learned, because I eventually came around and did the stalker angle that they wanted me to do. Here's the two things I didn't do. I didn't do the People's Champion, and I should have been so focused and dialed in on that there was no other option, because I'd already seen that blow everything up huge. I didn't do that, but most importantly, I didn't do that because I didn't stand up at the end of the meeting, shake Vince's hand, shake Shane's hand, and say, fellas, thank you so much for the opportunity. It's an awesome company to work with, but this storyline really isn't for me. When you want to do People's Champion versus People's Champion, call me, and I'm sure we could work something out. And walked out of the room. Now, the power of believing in yourself so much that you will get up and walk away from $1 million contract, knowing that if you stay, you're never going to be able to deliver what they're trying to set you up on, because it's a no-win situation. So I didn't get up and walk away from the table, but I swore to myself I would never let anyone derail one of my goals, and I set some pretty strong goals. I would not let anyone control my destiny. So now let's fast forward. And this has already happened. It happened maybe 5 times before the thing was Shark Tank. And over those 5 times, every time I got up and walked away from the table, it was the best thing ever happened to me. Well, now we're Shark Tank was 5 interviews: a phone interview, a Skype interview. We had to do a video shoot and send them our pitch. There was like 5 different ways before you get the 27-page contract. And when I got that contract, they basically wanted to control my business on any kind of PR, whether if I was going to be on ABC, or CBS or Fox or local. I had to make sure I gave the ABC affiliate first shot. And they just wanted to control everything that we did, from YouTube to everything. So I'm getting ready to leave for a meeting in Chattanooga. I'm in Atlanta, which is 90 minutes away. And I'm walking out the door, and I look back to Steve Yu, president of my company, and I said, Stevie, now remember, we've worked 2 straight years to be in this spot. I say, Stevie, contact Shark Tank. Tell them we love the show. We so appreciate the opportunity, but we're going to pass. And he looked at me like, what? Steve, it took 2 years to get here. Can't we work this out? I said, not the way they want to do it. I said, send them the email. got in my car. As I was pulling into Chattanooga, Steve called me up, said, D, get the executive producer on Shark Tank on the phone. He wants to figure out how we can fix this.
Nice.
4 contracts later, I signed it.
Right.
It was the best thing I did. Best thing ever happened to my company. But you can't let people block you into a situation. Now, you got to believe in yourself that what you have is you don't need them. You know, you don't need that. And so many people come into their businesses and they don't have enough money. So they have to make allowances and things that they might not have done. You know, so for me, you know, when I put, you know, all my money in, I put all my money in. You know,
right.
And there's a way other people's money. I wouldn't want to use other people's money, not to do what I was creating.
Indeed. Now, one of the things that you mentioned earlier that I'm just curious to see how important you feel it is for an entrepreneur who's out there when it comes to, you said you do care. I mean, you take the time to get on the phone. You're taking the time to be personal in that way. And yes, you see benefits. Clearly, you can't call the millions and all of them individually. But so some might think, though, if you're serving millions, why even bother calling 5? And it just raises the question, why care? Is caring absolutely necessary for me in my business? And if that's what I need to do, and do I really have to call people?
I don't think anybody has to call people. I do it because I like it.
I know, right? I've done that too. Yeah.
I like to, I have had people like, I won't call people just to say they heard about DDP Yoga from Jericho or Steve Austin, because those are easy calls. I'll call people who heard about it in the New York Times, on Facebook, on HBO, you know, wherever they found it. I always know the disabled veteran, friends and family. Love calling friends and family because they probably haven't seen anything. They've not even seen, you know, our docu-mercial. I don't call them infomercial because it's all about inspiring people. You know, the infomercial that we developed. But when I call and I see friends and family, I'll say, so who turned you on to this? And someone might say, you know, one of my friends sent me that video of the disabled veteran on Facebook. So that's sort of a combination there. But Facebook and YouTube, this with the disabled vet, but it came from a friend. Right. So, you know, I say the first thing, the reason I'm making this call is I want to thank you for believing in our whole program. And, you know, I see that, what I'll say is I thank you for believing in this, but I also want to encourage you to join teamddpyoga.com. It's the best support system on the planet. And I also want to encourage you to take those 6 pictures because they'll really get into your physiology, your flexibility, and your core strength. And when you can watch that change from month to month, that inspires you because, like, oh my God, look how different my physiology is, my flexibility, my weight, my core strength. Oh my God. Like, I didn't think I changed that much because people just don't remember. You don't take the pictures. I'll say take the measurements if you're trying to lose weight, because later on I'm going to replace that weight with muscle, and muscle weighs more than fat. So, you know, it's really, you get rid of the things that mess with your mind, you know, and you see it like boom to boom. And, you know, and then I'm going to say, you know, who's your friend? And they might, whatever, I remember this one guy called, it was his dentist. And I said, you have her number? And she goes, it's the second time she's talking about it. She's working my mouth talking about DDP Yoga. And I said, I got to call her. And I called her and left her a message on her work office. And she had left her cell phone number. And I called her on that. I wish I had that video. Because to hear that I was calling her, it was like, you can't pay for that kind of footage. You know, and I just didn't have nobody around me at the time, or I would have been filming it. Because it would have been just unbelievable, priceless. So when people say, and then I'll get other people, you know, maybe from a radio show they heard me on or whatever, and they'll be like, I just can't believe you picked up the phone and called me.
Right.
That is unbelievable. And I go, doesn't everybody do that? Just say a little bit to make you laugh, you know?
That's
So,
indeed. That personal touch does make a huge difference. That personal touch makes a huge difference. And I guess for let's say the two people who don't know about DDP yoga and more information, how on earth would you recommend for them to find out more so that they can understand why is he so excited and what is this transformation? And most importantly, how is he getting, because the major thing that you've been able to accomplish is massive distribution at scale. And that is amazing because every entrepreneur wants that. But for those who are looking to find out more about what it is that you guys are up to, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
Well, it's a series of things, really, because I always tell them, if you go to ddpyoga.com, the first thing you're going to see is that disabled veteran video. And Arthur Borman, when I met him, he's 5'6", 296 pounds. He could not walk without the aid of the knee braces, the back brace, or the wraparound canes. He walked on those canes for over 15 years. Took him 20 minutes to his wife would every morning have to put on his sleeves on his knees, then put his braces on, then connect the braces to the back brace. 20 minutes to get out of bed every morning. Imagine that. Then grab those wraparound canes and work your way to the bathroom. So to eliminate that from your life. So the bottom line is, in his goal going in, and it's the guy that back in the old days, I used to email everybody and thank her for getting the program. That was everyone. I did it it was a cut and paste email, but I sent it to everybody myself. And in it, I said, I'm not trying to sell you anything. You already bought the program. I want to thank you for that. But I'd really love some feedback. Here's 5 questions. And Arthur's questions were so detailed, it blew my mind. And then one of the things he had written to me, he had said, I've relegated to thinking of myself as a piece of furniture.
Wow.
And I wrote him back saying, tell me a little more about yourself. And that's where I found out disabled veteran, morbidly obese. I said, send me some pictures. And in that video that's on ddpyoga.com, I come up. It's the only time I come up in it. Nowhere in that video does it say DDP Yoga, ever. And I say, he sent me these pictures with the knee brace and the back brace and the wraparound canes, and his belly's out to here. And I thought, how am I going to help this guy? And then it goes back into Arthur's journey, but that's what I said. So I sent him my phase 3 eating plan. And I've got 5 different eating plans because sometimes it's just calorie counting, or sometimes just trying to get, the Snickers out of somebody's hands. They're trying to lose weight. And you got to understand, DDP Yoga has never been about weight loss. It's been about healing your body and making you unstoppable. But weight loss is an awesome side effect. And when you watch any ad out there on the television for some kind of drug they're trying to sell you, listen for the first 15 seconds how great it is, and listen for the last 45 how many ways they'll speed your body up.
Right.
My weight loss, it's like almost like it's a Saturday Night Live bit. It's like Saturday Night Live, the stuff that they say.
I know.
So you're really going to take that pill after all those things that thing can do to you? Because they've got you and some women frolicking through the flowers? So for me, our side effect is weight loss, which can be awesome, and muscle building. So long story short, Arthur's vision was to lose 50 pounds because the VA would not operate on his knees, which was the crucial point for the canes, would not operate on his knees until he got under 250, which makes sense. So that became the goal. When I sent Arthur my phase 3 eating plan, he wrote back 4 powerful words. He wrote back, I can do this. I said, send me your phone number. That's the first person I ever talked to who invested in my program that I had no idea who they were.
Nice.
And we talked, and we started that journey. The first month, Arthur lost 34 pounds. The second month, he lost 22 pounds. The third month, he lost 18 pounds. That's 74 pounds in 3 months. He would go on to lose 140 pounds in 10 months. More importantly, he lost the knee braces, the back brace, the wraparound canes, not just to walk, but to run. So if you know nothing about DDP Yoga, just go to ddpyoga.com, watch that video. And that's all you need to do. Because that right there is going to make you go, whoa. You see, more importantly, Jay, though, he never had his knees operated on.
Nice.
And that shows you the power of food, real food. And that's what DDP Yoga now will be all about, a lifestyle change. And what I say after everything, don't listen to a word I said on any of this show. Go to Facebook, one word, it's all one word, DDP Yoga, DDPYOGA. Read what people write in the posts. Go to Twitter, @RealDDP or @DDP Yoga. Read what people say. You can't pay people to do that. And our success at ddpyoga.com are insane. So, it isn't just Arthur. We've got lots of them. And they're all organic and real.
Excellent. Now, as we're closing down here, we have the final question is kind of, there's probably that person who's out there who's thinking to themselves, I would love to be excited as DDP is about what he's doing. I would love to be able to have my own something, and I can help people too. I want to put on my superhero outfit and begin to build a business, build my cash flow, and make something happen. What would you say to that person who's just right now possibly sitting on the sidelines thinking, man, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know how it'll feel if people laugh at me. I mean, and what if I fail? What really is going to happen? And should I even try? What would you have to say to them?
Well, one of the greatest quotes, another great quote that I heard, and I don't even have any idea who said it, but they said, and I tell every young kid to every adult this, especially if you want to be an entrepreneur, you need to find something that you absolutely love to do and figure out a way to get someone to pay you to do it. That's the American dream from A to Z. Think about this. In about 1979, I'm sure in the hood, there was some of the brothers doing this thing called rap. And at some point, somebody said from the Sugar Hill Gang, but I know there was somebody before them, in the middle of doing this thing they call rap, they said, I'm going to make a record. I'm going to get this on the radio. Boy, I bet you nobody laughed at them. I'm going to be worth millions of dollars. I'm going to change the world. And they did.
Right.
And I will guarantee you that they loved doing that rap and was doing it for years and getting paid, not getting paid a dime, but did it all the time.
Right.
And then whatever that band's name, but I've tried to find out. I know the Sugar Hill Gang was one of the first. So actually, friggin' even Blondie, Deborah Harry has a little rap in one of her songs that she does. But it's not rap like as we know it.
Right.
But there was some kids in the hood who ain't got no money. And they may have never even made it. But someone had heard it and started doing it, and then they started that challenge stuff, and next thing you know, they're making a record. And then two other guys, the very powerful story, and almost every person who knows inspiration knows this story, but it's a story like watching Arthur's video, you'll never get tired of that if you understand what adversity is, if you understand what keeping yourself as inspired as possible, and that's the whole thing. Motivation's one thing. You got somebody pushing you. You can stay motivated. Also, that coach goes. You sort of because you got to figure out how to inspire yourself. Like what jacks you up. Like stories like this jack me up. Roger Bannister, first guy to ever break the 4-minute mile in 1957. There was actually top medical people who wrote stories, journals on how the 4-minute mile will never, ever be broken. The athlete's heart could explode. That was actually written.
Right.
And then in 1957, he broke the record. And another guy who, I can't remember his name, because again, he wasn't the guy who broke the record, right?
Right.
But his number one adversary, can't remember his name right now, he heard that Bannister broke that record. So he said, if he can do it, I can do it. And he broke Bannister's record. Then Bannister broke his, and then he broke his. And then they did a race called the Race of the Century. And Bannister won again. Do you know how many people broke the 4-minute mile that year? 16 other people.
Wow. Yeah.
And since then, thousands have. So the people who don't just take the path less traveled, who come to the forest and there is no path, and they get out their bulldozer and they start taking down tree after tree after tree and creating their own path. Those are the visionaries who see things way off to the left or to the right, whatever side it is. And they have the tenacity not to ever give up. And then there's other people who take the path less traveled. They don't risk as much, but they're still risking a lot by taking that path. It's a lot less crowded over there.
More leg room.
And you can't be afraid to fail. I thank God for every positive thing that happens in my life. And within a week after, maybe sometimes a month after something negative that's happened, I find myself thanking God again. Because if that didn't happen, this doesn't happen.
Right. Right. Well, I definitely appreciate you taking the time today to invest here with the Cashflow Diary audience, sir. It's been fun hearing your passion and understanding how you can go out there and build it big from literally the worst of situations and meaning nothing if that's where you have to start.
Anybody can do it, bro. I'm a guy who was reading and writing at a third grade level at the age of 30. At 31, when I first started to read my first book, and it's sitting right on my counter, right next to my bed. It was Lee Iacocca's story. It's the only book that I have on my dresser, and it's always there. First book I ever read. 10 years later, with help my buddy Larry Smokey Jetta, we wrote my first book. Today I write everything.
Nice.
So anything's possible, bro.
Awesome. Thank you very much for being here today.